Vampire stories. Vampire stories have long intrigued horror writers, and in recent years, there has been something of a surge in a number of vampire stories. However, despite the growth of the genre, not much about it has changed in the last century. Most scholars consider Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla the first modern vampire story. However, the one that was far more influential in the genre is Bram Stoker's Dracula. That work, published a quarter century after Le Fanu's work, was not a success until Hollywood began to make vampire movies in the 1920s. Nevertheless, the book, and especially the film versions of it, has endured. Indeed, almost every vampire story written after Stoker's work bears striking similarities to it. The stories almost always involve a young girl falling under the charms of the vampire, and the vampire is almost always handsome and mysterious. Additionally, certain truths about vampires have their origin in Stoker's fiction. For example, almost all vampires in story can be burned by the sun, warded off by garlic, and can willingly turn into bats. For anyone who doesn't know, willingly is voluntarily, of one's own free will. They usually sleep in coffins too. All these are rooted only in Dracula, not in actual vampire myths of the Middle Ages. Passage 2. It is clear to all of us today that vampires do not exist and never did. Despite this certainty, though, vampire stories continue to multiply. In fact, it seems that vampires are more popular than ever before. And while there are major differences in every vampire stories, they all have one thing in common. Each is a direct response to the times in which it was created. Bram Stoker's Dracula, published in 1897, is centered on the morality of Victorian England. Stoker treated vampirism as a disease and alludes to a disease being spread through immoral lust. For anyone who doesn't know, immoral is unethical and not conform to accepted standards of morality. This references fear of both tuberculosis and syphilis. The work also struck a chord with Londoners who remember the famed Jack the Ripper. The fame means, for one who doesn't know, fame is famous, know about many people. Jack the Ripper killings of the previous decade. More modern stories have likewise made connection between vampirism and social problems. 1894's I Am Legend concerned the themes of global destruction. It sees vampirism as the end result of a pandemic brought on by the huge war. Readers could see the obvious connections between the work and Cold War fears. Still more recent works, such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, have explored vampires through post-colonial and feminist lenses. Several works have also treated vampires as a unique species of human. These seem to bring up complicated human relations brought about by globalization. Thus, virtually all vampire stories in existence are fantastic stories rooted in realistic, conventional fears. The first sentence is, why does the author of passage 1 place truth in quotation marks in paragraph 3? Well, I will highlight this text to make it easier to read. Here, the truth in quotation marks is here. And its author is quoting the words of Bram Stoker. Well, there were no the passage didn't mention that Stoker's work have this word, so it's not going to be a. The author is suggesting that the truth in question are agreed upon despite not actually being facts. It could be it could be this Very, very likely. Yes, I earn 1 point for that. According to passage 2, which of the following best summarize the primary differences between Dracula and I Am Legend? The former is rooted in vampire myths from the Middle Ages, while the latter is rooted in Cold War fear. The former is about Victorian morality, while the latter is focused on issues of globalization. I Am Legend. In this paragraph, I Am Legend concerns themes of global destruction, not globalization. It's about Victorian morality, while the latter is about Cold War fears. The reader can see the obvious connection between the work and Cold War fears. But this Bram Stoker's Dracula, published in 1897, is centered on the morality of Victorian England. So it is most likely C. As used in paragraph 4 of passage 2, the word fantastic is best understood to mean, I like this, fantastic story, imaginative, incredible. All vampire stories in existence are not no vampires are real, so the fantastic, it could be imaginative or incredible, but bizarre or impractical. But the fantastic word in a positive way, not a negative way, so D is not possible. Huge or extremely large isn't the same as fantastic, so A could be correct. Nice. Both authors agree that vampire stories serve as warning to culture at large. No. Vampire stories have a clear historic origin, rooted in realistic conventional fears. Nah. Invented by a French author. Nah. Vampire stories continue to be popular. Yeah. It could be. Vampire stories continue to multiply, and there's something of a surge in a number, so it D. Well, the primary differences between the two passages is passage 1. Well, the passage 1 is that all vampire stories are indebted to one source. Well, what is indebted? Well, indebted means beholden or owing money to. So all vampire stories bear striking resemblance to Dracula. Yeah, paragraph 1. Well, passage 2 argues that most vampire stories have little in common with Dracula. No. It doesn't say that there's little in common with Dracula, but in fact it's the same problem. Carmilla. That's the first modern vampire story. Well, passage 2, yeah. Passage 1 does say that. Yeah. Most modern vampire stories can be traced to Dracula. With the morality of societies both in passage 2. So this is possible. The most it could be C. Oh, the main point of passage 1. Well, this the explanation is the main point of passage 1 is presented at the start of the third paragraph, which states that almost every vampire written at the Stoker's work bears striking similarities to it. Passage 2 makes its main point in the final sentence of its paragraph, which states that each is a direct response to a time in which it was created. Each mean vampire stories. As such, passage 1 argues that vampire stories are indebted to one source. And you know what source is. While passage 2 make the argument that vampire stories are response to societal issues. Societal issues. Therefore, choice A is correct. Okay. Next, according to information provided by both passage, which our following work was published first? In both ones. Where passage 2 said Bram Stoker's Dracula was published first, and but passage 1 says that most scholars considered Carmilla the first modern one. However, the one was far more influential. It's Bram Stoker's Dracula. So it could be the Dracula. Oh. Information provided by both passages, but really never say that Camilla in here. Yeah, and I failed the test. And in this one, I did fall down to grade 9 after this quiz. And my Excel level was 1080. Not very good then. So I guess that's